I have this thing. I love, when I do things, I love to do things properly. I love to do things very, very well. And that means that when I make mistakes, I do them very, very well as well. And one of the biggest or smallest, biggest mistakes that I have ever done was a mistake that I did when I was in my 20s. It was a mistake that I did because I made a decision, and that decision was to shave my legs. I knew that the ladies would laugh. Wait, it hasn't finished there. And it wasn't the fact that I made a decision to shave my legs that was the mistake. It was the fact that I made the decision to wax them. That was worse. And that wasn't enough. I made the decision to do it by myself. Why have I told you this story? Because I think there's probably a few people in the crowd thinking to themselves, Gary, that's funny, but what's the point? Why have you told us this story? How is that related to real estate? I decided to open with this story for a couple of reasons. The first one is that we've had quite a long day, and it was a serious day, and I wanted to lighten up the mood just a little bit, so you are a little bit more attentive. And the second reason is that in the same way that I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into when I went to shave my legs, I had absolutely no idea what I stepped into when I decided to sell real estate in 2005. But despite of this, despite of those challenges, despite of those obstacles, through a bit of hard work, learning from the mistakes that I have done, and having a little bit of help from right people at the right time, I was able to create what people told me is quite a successful career in real estate. And today, over the next 47 and a half minutes that we have left, I'll talk about four things. I'll talk about the importance of staying in touch with people. I'll talk about the impact of extensive communication. I'll talk about some techniques, and we have had a little bit about this today, but some techniques, how we can overcome our fear in real estate, because it is a big thing. And number four, why we need passion in what we do with our lives. So starting with the need to stay in touch with people. One of the things that became very, very clear for me after I got licensed in 2005 was that the only way I will be able to build my business's real estate was going to be through door knocking and making cold calls. I am very, very good at door knocking, very good. I would say that about 25% of my business over the 10 years that I was selling real estate came as a result of door knocking. But it wasn't like this when I started selling. When I started selling, I was petrified of door knocking. I didn't know how to do it, didn't know what to say, didn't understand how the industry worked. When I started door knocking, what I did was I would go and I would knock on doors, and then I would introduce myself, tell people who I am, ask them if they wanted to sell. Most of the time they said not, and so I would move on. And that's what I did probably for my first year in real estate. Knock on doors, are you interested in selling? No, thank you so much. Knocked on doors, are you interested in selling? No, thank you so much. I would just look for the business right now, and I would move on. I remember the first time somebody said yes to me at the door. It was about a year after I started to door knock. And that's how pathetic I was when I started. And I remember it was an old bungalow in Grand Road in Mount Eden. I knocked on the door, and an older gentleman opened the door. And I introduced myself. I said, hi, would you be interested in selling? And he looked at me with this really, really weird look on his face, and he said, yes. And I had no idea what to say. But other than a few cases like this, most of the time I would knock on doors, there was no interest, I would move on. Knock on doors, no interest, I would move on. In 2007, end of 2007, when the global financial crisis hit, I suddenly found myself with no business at all. And I struggled, I more than struggled. It was a horrible time for me. And I struggled because up until that point, I didn't understand how real estate works. Up until that point, I didn't understand that most of the business that we get in real estate doesn't happen today. Most of the business that we get in real estate happens in the future. I didn't understand that the conversations that we have with people today will give us business if we are nice, pleasant, and professional, and we continue to stay in touch with people until they are ready. And if we do that, if we stay in touch with people, we will get the business, and the business will be better business because they had the time to get to know us, to build a bit of a relationship with us, and a little bit of trust. So the importance of staying in touch. And the importance of staying in touch and following up with people is not just when we start. It's for as long as we are in the industry, we must stay in touch with people all the time. Because in real estate, we do not operate in a vacuum. It's not just us. The minute we step back, the minute we stop staying in touch with people, stop sending information and talking to them, somebody else will step in. And that somebody else will get the business because we slacked. The next part, communication. Most of the work that we do in real estate, and I think most of you would agree with me, a big part of the work that we do in real estate is work that the public doesn't see. Would you agree with that? So they don't see us, the only times they see us is when we present offers, when we bring buyers to properties, and when we do open homes. They don't see us making the callbacks. They don't see us following up with buyers. They don't see us writing the advertisement. They don't see us doing all the work that is behind the doors. And because of that, I realized that most of the time people don't realize that we work a lot and that we do much more than what they think that we do. And so I started to call my vendors every day. And I would update them on what I was doing every day, what was happening with the property, and what I was doing as well. Whether there was activity on the property or no activity at all. And I found that if there was no activity at all, it was even more important to talk to them every day. But now the owners knew everything that I was doing. Now the owners realized that I was working for them even when there was nothing to show. When I started to inform the owners about everything that I was doing, their attitude changed. They realized that I was working. And so even when I didn't sell a property, they still thanked me for my hard work. When I didn't sell a property, most of the time, they would come back to me later on when they were ready to sell again because they knew that I was working. Stay in touch, talk to your vendors all the time. The only reason people don't talk to their vendors every day? Laziness and fear. 2 reasons, that's it. 30-second conversation, how hard is this? Talk to your vendors every day. Third point about fear. One of the things that really intrigued me when I started to train salespeople in 2016 was, why is it that some salespeople get into the industry and thrive, and other salespeople get into the industry and they barely survive? What is it that makes some people survive and others don't? And as I looked at the salespeople that I trained, as I looked at my colleagues, that I looked at my journey, I realized that the 2 main reasons are simply fear and avoidance of discomfort. People are scared, they try to avoid discomfort. That means they do not prospect because they don't like it, it's uncomfortable. They don't have the difficult conversations with people when it comes to giving feedback and negotiation. And because of that, people, and they try to please them all the time, and because of that, the listings and the negotiations will fail. They are afraid of the rejection, and because of that, a lot of people don't ask for business. And as I started to study fear, as I started to research, I realized that this is natural because our brain processes emotional distress in the same way that it processes physical pain. Both emotional distress and physical pain are being processed in our brain in the same place. That is the anterior insula and the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. Same place. So when we get rejected, when we get laughed at, when we fail, our brain actually processes that as if we have been physically hit. And it creates that pain, and this is why we try and avoid it. One of the most important things that we need to have in our lives in order to be able to overcome those fears, those challenges, is a support person. Somebody that we can talk to, somebody we can count on, somebody that is there for us when things fall apart. For me, most of my time, my wife is my support person. When things go wrong, I go and I have a chat with her. And we talk about things, and then once I talk about it, it is easier for me to clear things in my head, and I can move on. Who is your support person? Who is your support person? Do you have a support person? A support person is a very, very important person in our life. It's the person that can lift us up when we struggle. It is a person that can really change the way that we operate because they are there for us, either physically or just sometimes through a text saying, hey, you're doing great, keep on going. Who is your support person? If you don't have one, find one. If you have one, when you go home or at the end of today, give them a call and say thank you. The second thing with external help is to find an accountability person. Who here has an accountability person? Nobody? Wow, incredible. You all have mortgages, you all have bank managers. That is a little bit of an accountability person. But an accountability person is a different person to the support person. An accountability person is the evil person. It's somebody that we're actually a little bit afraid of. The job of the accountability person is to push us, to make us do things that we don't necessarily want to do. I don't know about you. When I was struggling in real estate, when I was successful in real estate, one of the things that I did that has really helped me stay focused is getting an accountability person, and that accountability person was my branch manager. I would go and I would meet, I volunteer, I insisted that they would do it with me. I would go and I would meet with my branch manager every week. And every week, I would tell them what I did, and we would set plans for what I'm going to do over the next week. And so I knew that I have somebody checking on me. And because of that, I pushed myself to do the things that I didn't really like. In the movie Forrest Gump, there's this scene where Forrest sits on a bench and he talks to the person next to him and he says, my mother told me that life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. My mother never told me anything about chocolates. But my mother taught me how to wax my legs. And I think that real estate is a lot like waxing your legs. You don't know how difficult it is until you get into it. Once you're into it, there's a lot of pain and discomfort all the time. But as you begin to see results, as you begin to see things happening, you realize that it is one of the most amazing things that you could ever chosen to do. Real estate is an amazing industry. For those who have been in it for a while, it has changed their lives. And for those of you that are starting, it can change your lives. Focus on it. Focus on the things that you can do. Push yourself beyond what you think you can. And you'll see that this real estate changes you, that this industry changes you. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the program.